Hey everybody, welcome to Algebra Refresher video number 2 leading into lesson 8.3. So we've talked about slopes and the slopes of perpendicular lines. The next thing that you're going to need to know how to remember to do here in lesson 8.3 is to simplify radicals. And remember, those radicals are going to come from the context of finding distances in the coordinate plane. So if we end up with a larger radical, we want to be able to simplify it. And in order to do that, we have a very simple three-step process. I'm just going to summarize really quickly. We want to, number one, we want to find the largest perfect square factor that will divide evenly, that's what a factor means, remember, into the number that is under the radical. The step number 2 is we want to break the original radical into two separate radicals multiplied together. So we'll say that that looks like square root a times square root b. And specifically, you guys, you want to feed in to that factor pair of square roots there. When you find the perfect square factor in step 1, you want to put that in the spot for a. So you'll have the perfect square factor under a radical in that first spot of the radicals times the other one. That is going to give you, in this case, it'll be 45 when we're looking at number 9. The final step is to simplify the square root of a factor of the product that you have in step 2. And if you have picked a perfect square factor, then that will simplify that part in step 3. Will simplify to simply a whole number. Okay? So let's go through those steps here. Step 1, we're going to find the largest perfect square factor. Now, if you haven't kind of run down the list of perfect squares for a while, that is 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, etc., etc., etc. Okay? So just a reminder, what we're talking about there, right, is that this is 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared, etc. Okay, that's what a perfect square is. Now, technically, the 1 squared part is really not going to get us anywhere. So when we think about numbers that are dividing into the number we have under the radical, we want to probably start with 4 and build from there. And this can be a simple arithmetic check on your calculator. In this particular case here for number 9, we do have a 9. And 9 times what gives you 45 is the question you're asking. It's 9 times 5. So at this point, you guys, we have found that largest perfect square factor. It's 9. And we have broken it into two separate radicals or square roots multiplied together. And we have also made sure that in the first radical, for a here in our list, we have put the perfect square that we found. And so 9 is in that front spot. Now the reason for that is because we know that the square root of 9, as we're looking here in step 3, is simply going to become 3. And so my final answer here for simplifying the square root of 45 and going through our 3 steps is going to give us 3 times the square root of 5, or sometimes you hear me say that 3 radical 5. Now if you went through and you actually did take the square roots on your calculator, the square root of 45 is going to be a number that is 6 point something, and so is 3 times the square root of 5, so you can always verify that that original decimal is equal to 3 radical 5. And both of those on your calculator are going to come out to be approximately, like I said, 6 point something, 6.7. So you can just always kind of make sure that you have done your simplification correctly by using your calculator to check that the simplified version goes back to what the original decimal would be. Okay, so next I want you to try number 10 and see what you can do for simplifying that one. Don't forget to check your answer. Thanks.